Crue. I'm David Watkins. I'll be your host today on my guest blog. It's my very first video blog. I'm pretty excited about it. I got a brand new camera for Christmas. And in commemoration for getting a brand new webcam, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a movie review. I'm going to do one of the reviews from one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. A movie that has absolutely changed my life, and that is Brandon Lee's The Crue. The Crue is the story of Eric Draven, who is a musician when he was alive, and he's killed by a group of men called T-Bird's Gang, which are four men: Tintin, T-Bird, Skank, and Funboy. Draven was engaged to a woman named Shelley Webster, and they lived in a crime-ridden town, city, and they were both killed on the night before Halloween. Halloween Eve in this city is called Devil's Night. It's where they go and this gang lights fires and steals and kills and pillages and whatever, cause random havoc. Now, what happens is on Devil's Night, Eric Draven is reborn. His spirit comes back to Earth, led by the Crue. And there's mythology to it that says that the Crue brought back the spirit of someone who is dead and would allow them to enact revenge. So the story of the Crue follows Eric Draven as he goes and kills these four men and eventually uncovers the entire gang, which is actually behind him dying, him and his fiancée. Brandon Lee, Eric Draven, runs into a man named Officer Elbrick, who is the officer that actually found them when they were both killed on Halloween night a year before. There's also a girl named Sarah who they used to take care of, and her mother is actually dating one of the men that's in the gang, Funboy. She's a morphine addict. Sarah and her mother's relationship really hangs on Eric Draven's coming back. So it's kind of cool to see how Eric Draven keeps progressing in his character. Like, he changes a lot. You see him go from someone who's living and, you know, who's really passionate about his wife and music and things like that, and then he dies. And then when he comes back, he's just like this completely unemotional badass who just keeps killing people. He has a lot of character development. You see how he changes because he gets softer. Like, he focuses more on his music and becomes the man who he used to be. So Eric's character keeps changing, and he becomes the person that he once was. He tries to take care of Shelley. I mean that's the basic story. So I'm gonna go into things that I really like about it. I love how each one of the kills are like completely ironic and sarcastic and awesome, because Brandon Lee is amazing. Okay, he's so twisted. One of the cool kills is where Tintin, he's like a knife wielding dude. That's like his thing. You know, he stabs people. Don't we all? So he takes Tintin's knives, okay? And Tintin, like, throws his knives. So, like, you know, you're standing 10, 20 feet away, and he'll whip a knife at you, and you'll die. Well, Eric is such a badass that he knocks both knives out of the air. Like, he'll just, you know, swats them like flies. And he grabs, the third knife and just whips it at Tintin, stabs him in all of his organs, and then spreads his blood all over the wall. And it's shaped in the shape of a crow. That's right. That's how he rolls. He's Eric Draven. He's a badass. Yeah. So, really, really awesome, ironic murdering. Another thing that makes me really like this movie, other than the fact that it's completely ironic and awesome, is it made me fall in love with the 80s. It really did. The Crue gave me a window into the subculture of the 80s that I admire so much. The music, the drugs, you know, not that I really get into that stuff, but it's just cool to see all about it, to learn about those kinds of things that came from an era that I really more or less fit into better than what I do now. So, you know, it made me fall in love with the 80s, which is great. And then there's Brandon Lee. This was Brandon Lee's final film. He was actually killed on stage, and there's 4 scenes that he's not alive for. They used a body double, and they actually finished the movie. Now, in the original comic book, in The Crue, this is actually from a comic book. I kind of assumed that you all knew it. So, in the original comic book, there's another character who's called Skull Cowboy. and he's removed. You don't get to see it. They said that it was inappropriate to have Skull Cowboy in the final cut because of Brandon's death. Brandon was shot on stage. They ran out of the fake blunt cartridges that they used in film. So what they did is they went down to a hardware store, took a whole bunch of bullets, emptied out the black powder, and loaded them into actual guns. Yeah. So they killed one of the possible greatest actors of all time. And there was a conspiracy theory, actually, that they did it on purpose because Brandon Lee's dad, Bruce Lee, who was another actor who came from China and was in a few really, really, really good movies like Chinese Democracy and Enter the Dragon, Return of the Dragon, a whole bunch of things. Even the Green Hornet, which was called the Kano Show in China. Those were all really great movies that he was in. But he died of suspicious causes on the scene of Enter the Dragon, which was really sad because it was his last movie that, it was the big break movie that absolutely changed film because, it was all the karate stuff and ninjas, whatever. Again, really sad. Brandon Lee dies. It's the worst thing about the film is that the guy dies. So they removed Skull Cowboy. Skull Cowboy was supposed to tell Eric Draven to stay on the path. Kill the men that you have to kill, and then you have to go back to the grave. Okay? That's originally a big part of the plot. But they nixed Skull Cowboy. Instead, they blame it on something else, which I don't want to tell you about. And the reason that Skull Cowboy is actually an important character is because he goes back and he wants to take care of Shelley Webster. But of course, Eric Draven has to die. He was dead. He was only given like a 2-day reprieve. I think you can find the videos online. I didn't see them, but I'm sure somebody has them. They had deleted... it was a real tragedy. It sucked. He was a great actor. The man is fantastic. And, moreover, he was the only person that still had mastered the art of Jeet Kune Do, which was the martial art that Bruce Lee had came up with of China, and he perfected them. He took everything that was wrong and changed it, and it was all better. So,
back to the movie.
The Crue, in its first year of production, actually grossed over $100 million, which isn't quite as much now, but if you look at, sales and whatever, it was a lot more. You sold ridiculous amounts of film doing that. If you cannot get the video, if you do not want to watch it, at least get the soundtrack. The soundtrack is freaking amazing. I have all the songs right here. I'm not going to tell you the songs, you probably won't know them, but the bands. The Cure, Machines of Loving Grace, Stone Temple Pilots, 9 Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine, Violet Femmes, Roland Band, Hamlet, Pantera, Not Love for Lisa, My Life with a Thrill Kill Cult, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, Medicine, and Jane Sirbury. Jane Sirbury, yeah, whatever. But all the rest of them, beautiful. It is oh god, I love this album. It's also the album that really got me into rock and the old style rock. And another cool thing is the cinematography. A lot of films before had used color and lighting and things like that to kind of set the mood. For example, Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy goes from being in a farmhouse to entering Oz, it went from black and white to all color. Well, they kind of do that, but backward. In The Crow, they use really, really low lighting. It's almost black and white, because the original comic was black and white, and the guy that originally wrote it said that he wanted it to be in black and white, but they wouldn't do it because then it would look like an old-style film and you wouldn't get as much money. So they went ahead and they shot it, and then they used a filter to where it took out almost all the color, except the scenes where Eric Draven was still alive before his murder. So whenever he has a flashback about Shelley, it's more vivid. So when you see this, it's captures your attention. It's fantastic. It's amazing. I love this entire movie. I love everything about it except him dying. It sucks. I love it because the irony, the cinematography is great, and it was the last Brandon Lee film. God rest in peace.